You don't yet know it is Saturday, the 28th of June, in the year of our Lord, 1348. You don't know that before nightfall you will stand in a doorway 5 feet from a wall of fire and look the Pope of Rome in the face. You don't know that the Pope will look back. You don't know that he will ask you your name. You are 44 years old. You are the midwife of the Dyer's quarter of Avignon. Your name is Adelaide. 2 weeks ago you buried your husband, the cobbler Jean, in the cemetery of Saint-Pierre. 3 weeks ago, before he died, he polished for you the pair of small Toledo steel scissors he had brought back from Spain when he was young, and he put them in your linen bag without saying anything. He was already coughing then. He coughed for 9 days, and then he stopped. In your bed, you have 2 children. Marguerite is 11, and Bertrand is 7. They are still alive at the moment that the bells of Saint-Pierre ring for prime. The bells ring at 4:30 by our reckoning, though no one in Avignon would have called it that. They ring for the office of prime. They have been ringing every hour now for 15 days, not for the officers, but for the dead. The bell ringer at Saint-Pierre is a boy of 19 named Pierre also, and he has been told by his sub-prior simply to keep pulling the rope. There is no point in distinguishing the hours of prayer from the hours of burial, when the burials run together, end to end. By the bell ringer's count, which he keeps with chalk marks on the inside of the tower wall, 3,400 souls have left Avignon since the 8th of May. 3,400. He stopped counting on the 21st of June because the chalk wore through to the stone underneath, and because he could not remember any more which marks were for which day. You hear the bell from your bed, but you have been awake since before it began. You have not slept properly since they took Jean's body out on a board through the door. The board is leaned against the wall now, beside the loom where you used to weave belts when you had time, which was a kind of life ago. The board has a rust-colored stain at one end. You will not touch the board. Marguerite walks around it. Bertrand has not yet noticed it is there. You sit up. Your knees crack. The stone of the floor in your house is cold, even now, in the last week of June, because the house is built into the slope below the rampart, and the lower wall does not see the sun until late morning. You light the candle stub on the table. Tallow, not wax. Wax is for the wealthy and for the church. The tallow smells of mutton fat. You will use the candle for 4 minutes, perhaps 5, to get yourself dressed. It is the second to last candle in the box on the shelf. Candles in Avignon in June of this year cost 4 deniers apiece, 4 times what they cost last year, because the chandler in the Rue Saint-Étienne is dead, and his apprentice has fled to his uncle in Carpentras, and now the candles come only from Marseille, by boat up the Rhône, and the boatmen want hazard pay. You pour water from the clay pitcher into the basin. The water has a faint taste of clay and of the canal beside the Dyer's street that smells of wood and indigo. You wash your face and your hands. You rub salt onto your gums, the way the old women have always done. There is a chamber pot under the bed. There are no privies in this quarter of Avignon. There is the canal, when it flows, and there is the wall along the Rue des Lys. Around the corner from your house, at the wall, there is a man this morning who is lying on his side. You will see him when you go out. You will not know if he is asleep or dead. You will not stop to find out, because you have been called. You have been called because a boy ran up to your door an hour ago when the sky was still grey. He knocked. He said, "Madame Adelaide, the Dyer Hughes's wife is going. She is going. Come now." You put your linen bag together by feel in the dark. comfrey leaves wrapped in a square of wool, coarse salt in a horn, a small loaf of black bread because labour can run long, a copper penny to lay on the woman's tongue between pains, to give her something to bite, the Toledo steel scissors, a length of clean linen, twice boiled, that you keep for the cord. You take the bag, you take the candle, you blow it out, you step over the board. You walk through Avignon at the first grey light of dawn. The street smells of vinegar. Every doorway has a cloth nailed to it, soaked in vinegar, because vinegar is supposed to keep out the bad air. You don't know if it does. You don't believe it does. 3 weeks ago, Jean had vinegar at every window of the house, and it did not save him. But you still do it for your own children. You don't argue with the practice. There are some things you do because not doing them feels like consent. At the corner of the Rue des Bouchers, you pass the first cart. It is being pulled by a single man, on foot, wearing a cloth tied over his nose. There are 7 bodies in the cart. You do not look at the faces. You do not look at the cart. You walk on. The man does not greet you. You do not greet the man. By the Rue des Teinturiers, the Dyer's street, you can already hear the woman. Her name is Mathilde. She is 26. This is her 4th child. Her first 3 were boys, 2 living, 1 buried at 4 months last winter. Her husband, the Dyer Hugues, is at the door when you arrive. His hands and forearms stained the same blue-black as his vats, the dye permanent under the skin, his eyes red. He has not slept. He pulls you in through the door without speaking. His mother is upstairs with Mathilde. You go up. Mathilde is on a low chair, sweating, leaning forward. She knows you. She has known you for 10 years. She does not speak when you come in. She only nods. You set down the bag. You ask the mother-in-law for hot water and for 2 clean rags. You wash your hands a second time. You take out the comfrey. You put a sprig in Mathilde's mouth. She bites it. You feel her belly. The child is head down, well placed, almost ready. You speak quietly. You say, "This will go quickly, Mathilde. You will have him before the bells ring next." You count the bells. The bells ring for terce. The child comes. A boy. Small, but breathing. Mathilde laughs once. One short laugh that is also a sob. And then she lies back. The mother-in-law begins to weep. You cut the cord with the Toledo scissors. You tie it. You wash the boy in warm water with a pinch of salt. You hand him to his mother. You go down to the room where Hugues is waiting, and you nod to him and you say, "A boy." Hugues does not answer. He sits down on a stool and puts his head in his hands. He is 31. He does not know yet that he will be dead in a week. You sit at his table. He sets in front of you a wooden cup with watered wine and a hunk of barley bread, and he counts out into your palm 6 deniers, the price of a delivery in the Dyer's quarter, as it has been since the time of his father. You drink the wine in 3 swallows. You put the deniers in the small leather purse at your belt. You stand. You take your bag. You say to Hugues, and these are the last words you will ever say to him, though neither of you knows it yet: "God keep your son." A note before you walk the rest of this day. The midwife's name is composite, woven from several real women of Avignon in the summer of 1348. The Pope, his physician, the bull, the bonfires, the river burials, those are documented. The rest is reconstruction in the spirit of the surviving texts. The voice is mine. The day is hers. You walk home slowly. The sun is up now. The vinegar smell from the doorways is stronger in the heat. You pass a second cart at the Rue Saint-Symphorien. There are 11 bodies in this one. You walk on. You feel the small purse against your hip. You feel the way you always feel after a child has come well. A slow, simple peace that you do not quite name. You think about whether you will sleep this afternoon for an hour. You think about whether there is barley left for the children. You think about Jean, briefly, and then you put the thought aside, because thinking of Jean is something you do at night when the children are asleep, not on the street with the sun rising. You come to your own door. You expect to find Marguerite at the loom. She has begun, in the past 2 weeks, to weave belts in your place. You expect Bertrand to be eating bread on the threshold. Instead, Marguerite is standing in the door, her hand on the frame, her face white. She says, "Maman, 2 men came from the Palais. They said you must come as soon as you return. They said you must not stop. They are waiting at the gate of the Rue de la Calade." You stand on the threshold. You do not understand. You put down the bag. You wash your hands at the basin. You put a piece of barley bread on the table for Bertrand, who has not woken. You take a sip of water. You touch Marguerite on the head. You think, and you will remember this thinking later, that perhaps the cardinal's wife on the Rue des Ortolans has died, and they want you to wash a body, because midwives do this also, and you have done it 3 times this month already. You put your linen bag back on your shoulder. You ask Marguerite if there is wood for the fire. There is. You say to her, "Stay in the house. Do not open the door to anyone except me. You will be back by night." You walk up the street toward the Rue de la Calade, and you do not yet know that the 2 men who are waiting for you are not from the household of any cardinal's wife. You do not yet know that they are from the household of the Pope. You walk up the Rue des Lys, and you stop, almost without meaning to, by the stone trough where the donkeys drink. The trough is dry. It has been dry since the fountain keeper died, when 10 days ago, 12 days ago, you don't remember exactly. There is a cat sitting on the rim of the trough licking its paw. A small grey cat with 1 white forepaw, very thin, alive, calmly washing itself. You stand there for a moment, and you look at the cat washing its paw, and you feel, for one breath, that the world is not in fact ending. The cat does not know there are 50,000 people-shaped pieces of grief inside this city. The cat is washing its paw. Then you walk on. At the gate of the Rue de la Calade, the 2 men are waiting. The first is a sergeant of the Pope's household. You can tell by the dark wool jerkin and the badge stitched at the shoulder, the keys crossed under a tiara. He is perhaps 35. The second is a thin man in a black cassock, the kind a secretary wears, holding a small leather satchel. He is younger, perhaps 28, with dark eyes and ink on the side of his thumb. The sergeant does not speak. The secretary speaks. He says, "Are you Adelaide, midwife, of the Dyer's quarter?" You say, "I am." He says, "His Eminence Cardinal Etienne Aubert sends for you." He says, "There is a young woman in his household who began her travail 3 hours ago. She is 2 months early. His personal physician left the city on the 8th of June. The cardinal's chaplain has gone to fetch a regular priest. We were told you were the steadiest in this quarter. We have a litter waiting." You are silent for a long moment. You do not, for that moment, fully take in what you are hearing. The Cardinal Aubert. The Cardinal Aubert lives on the 3rd floor of the Palais des Papes. There is no litter. There is only the cardinal's man and the cardinal's secretary, and a stone alleyway behind them. You will walk. They have not brought a litter because they do not want to be seen. You understand this without being told. A cardinal does not send for a midwife from the Dyer's quarter unless something has gone wrong in a household that should not contain a young woman in labor at all. You say, "I will come." You also say, and you are not sure where you find the voice because you have never spoken this way to a man of the household of the Palais. You also say, "I want my daughter brought to your gate before the sun is low. I want her to see me alive before I go up the stairs again. If I am not home by the bell for Compline, I want someone of the cardinal's house to carry her and my son to the nuns at Sainte Claire for that night." The secretary looks at the sergeant. The sergeant nods. The secretary says, "It will be done. We will send someone for your children when you have begun." He says it the way men with no children speak about children, as if it is a matter of putting them somewhere out of the rain. You turn back. You walk the 4 streets back to your own door. The cat is still on the trough. Marguerite is still in the doorway. You tell her, "The men who came were not from a cardinal's wife. They are from the cardinal himself. There is a girl in trouble in his house. You will go and stay until it is done." You tell her, "The sergeant will come for you when it is time. You will go with him to the gate. You will see me through the door. I will see you. Then I must go up. Do you understand?" She nods. She does not cry. She has not cried since the day Jean was buried. She had cried before, 3 or 4 times. You remember each. But since the burial, she has gone quiet. And it is the kind of quiet a midwife sees in women who have been in too much pain to keep speaking. You put your hand on her hair. You tell her, "I will come back tonight." You tell her, "Bolt the door behind me." You step over the board against the wall with the rust-colored stain. You walk back through the Rue de Lys for the 3rd time this morning. The secretary and the sergeant are waiting at the gate. They begin walking. You walk 3 steps behind them, which is the proper place, because you are a woman of the city and they are men of the Palais, and the streets are not yet empty enough that there is no one to see. The Rue de la Calade climbs. The Palais des Papes rises on the left. It has 2 great towers and a long wall and a curtain of newer stonework where Pope Benedict XII, who is dead these 8 years, started his enlargement. Clement VI, who is the Pope now, has continued the building. There are scaffolds against the western face. There are no workmen on the scaffolds. The masons are dead or have fled to Carpentras and Tarascon and any village that does not have plague yet, though there are fewer and fewer such villages. You do not go in by the great gate. The sergeant turns you down a narrow lane that runs along the eastern foot of the wall. There is a small door, iron-banded oak, set deep into the stone. Above it, the bell of Saint-Pierre rings again, for terce almost, or, to be exact, between terce and sext, for one of the burials at the cathedral. The sergeant unlocks the door with a key on his belt. The secretary stands aside. You step in. The corridor inside is cold. You expect this. Stone walls, 8 feet thick, do not warm in summer until July is half gone. The smell is of damp stone and lamp oil, and faintly of the kitchen at the far end of the corridor, where someone is boiling mutton in a great copper pot for the household. You walk behind the sergeant. The secretary follows. No one speaks. Your shoes click on the flagstones. You did not bring a softer pair. You did not know you would be inside the Palais today when you put them on this morning. The first staircase, 16 steps. The second staircase, 16 more. As you climb, the air begins to grow warmer. By the second turn you can smell it, wood smoke, pine. And under the pine, something heavier. myrrh, perhaps, or rosemary, burned in a brazier. By the third turn, the corridor is uncomfortably warm. You begin to sweat under your linen wrap. The secretary, walking behind you, says, without being asked, "His Holiness has been sitting between two fires by the order of Maître Chauliac since the 8th of June. 20 days. Maître Chauliac believes the fires drive the bad air out of the chamber. His Holiness has had no fever. He has not been touched. He keeps his books beside him. The Maître is with him at most hours." You do not answer. You have heard, of course. Everyone in Avignon has heard. The Pope sits between fires in his own palace as if he were a martyr being roasted by Romans. You had not believed it. Now you can smell the smoke. You believe it. You also understand, as you climb, that you are being led not to the Pope, but past him. Cardinal Aubert's apartments are on the same level as the Pope's chamber, in the wing that overlooks the orchard. The corridor that takes you there runs alongside the chamber of the fires. You can already feel the heat through the wall on your right hand. At the top of the third stair, the sergeant turns left. The secretary walks past. The right-hand wall, the one with the heat coming through it, runs on for 30 paces. You walk along it. You can hear a man's voice on the other side, quiet even, reading aloud. You do not catch the words. Latin. The voice is steady. The voice does not sound afraid. The secretary stops at a low door on the left. He knocks twice. A woman opens it. She is thin, perhaps 50, in a grey gown, very pale. She looks at you. She looks at the secretary. She says nothing. She opens the door wider. You step in. The room is small. A bed of dark walnut against the far wall. A crucifix above the bed, old, of olive wood. A single small window high up, glazed with horn. The light comes through milky. 2 candles on a low chest burning. A woman on the bed. She is 19. You see this at once. She is very pretty in the way a girl is, who has been fed well for several years and slept warm. Long brown hair undone, dark with sweat. A linen shift, lifted to the waist. Her legs are drawn up. She is biting the cloth of the shift between her teeth. There is a small bowl of dark blood on the floor by the bed. There is no priest. There is no one in the room except the older woman in grey, and now you. You set down your bag. You wash your hands a 3rd time today in the basin the older woman points to. You speak quietly. You say, "My name is Adelaide. I have come to help you. What is your name?" The girl on the bed lets the cloth out of her teeth and she says, in a voice that is much smaller than her body, "Beatrice." You say, "Beatrice, how many months?" She says, 6. Perhaps a little more. You say, "How long since the pains began?" She says, "Before sunrise." The older woman in grey, who is watching from the wall, says, "She has been bleeding since about the time of prime." You look at the bowl on the floor. You look at the girl. You put your hand on her belly. The child is alive. The child is moving. The child is 2 months too small to be born and live. The mother is bleeding and has been bleeding for 3 hours. You set out your tools on a clean square of linen on the chest beside the candles. The Toledo scissors, the comfrey, the salt horn, the clean linen for the cord. You think, and you know this thought is honest, you think, there are 2 people in this room who may not see tonight. Outside, through the wall on your right, the steady voice goes on reading Latin. You understand a single word as you bend down to the bed. It is the word Agnus, lamb. Then you forget the wall and the Pope and Avignon, and you put your hands on the girl, and you go to work. It is a strange thing about a room of birth. Whatever is happening in the rest of the world stops happening at the door. The plague is in 3 streets of Avignon, between this room and the river. The fires are burning on the other side of the wall on your right. 3 rooms away, the secretary you came in with has slipped down the corridor to send word to your daughter at your door. None of this is in your hands. The girl in the bed is in your hands. The world is the size of a bed and a basin. The wall, however, is thin, and on the other side of the wall, in the long chamber that overlooks the orchard, there is a man you have not yet seen, and may not see, who is reading aloud to the Pope of Rome. His name is Guy de Chauliac. He is 48 years old. He is the personal physician of His Holiness Clement VI. He was born in the Auvergne, in a village called Chauliac, of poor parents who put him in the church because he was too small for farm work. He studied at Toulouse and then at Montpellier, and later in the schools of Italy. He has dissected human bodies in the cellar of a hospital in Montpellier, where the schools permit what the universities of the North do not. He has written down what he saw in the bodies. He has read Galen in good Latin translations, and the Arabs Avicenna and Albucasis as well, and he distrusts the parts of the old learning that do not match what his hands have found in the bodies. He believes also that the disease that is killing Avignon comes in 2 shapes. He has begun a book about this. The book will be called Chirurgia Magna, and will be the standard medical text of Europe for 300 years. It will be copied by hand into Latin and French and Spanish and Hebrew. It will be printed in Lyon in 1478 and will still be on physicians' shelves in the universities of Europe 2 centuries later. In the book, Maître Chauliac will write, using the first person, which is rare, that in the summer of 1348 he attended his pope through the months of the great fires in the chamber. He will write that he himself, that autumn, fell ill of the same disease and survived. He will write that he saw the 2 forms, the swellings in the groin and armpit, and the cough of blood, and that the second always killed, and the first sometimes did not. He will name what no chronicler before him has dared to name. The book will be honest. It is being written in his head right now on the far side of this wall. Right now he is reading Vespers aloud to the Pope, 3 hours before Vespers. He reads 3 of the offices ahead because there will not be time later. He is the one whose voice you heard through the stone. He has just read the word Agnes. Come back to the room. Beatrice is on the bed. She is sweating. The bowl by the bed is fuller than it was. You have your hands on her belly very gently. You have done this 12 times before, and you know already what is happening. The child is coming, but it is coming shoulder first. The shoulder is presenting at the cervix. You have eased a shoulder-first child into a head-first child 5 times in your life. Twice the children lived. 3 times they did not. You have lost the mother once. You think, not today. You speak to the older woman in grey. You say, hold her shoulders, speak to her, tell her your name. The older woman says, my name is Aliénor. She tells Beatrice her name. She holds the girl's shoulders. She begins, quietly, to say a prayer that is not from the Missal, an old prayer of women in childbirth, in the langue d'oc, the speech of this country. You know it. You have heard it said over you when Marguerite was born, and when Bertrand was born, and when there was a 3rd child between them who did not live. The prayer is to St. Margaret, who came out of the belly of a dragon, and who is, for that reason, the patron of women whose children come out of their bellies hard. You let Aliénor pray. You keep your hands on the belly. You turn the child. You feel for the elbow. You find it. You ease the elbow back. You feel for the head. You guide the head down. It takes, or to be exact, 3 hours, and the time it takes to say 2 Marian psalms. You count the bells. You hear the bell for sext. You hear the bell for the second hour after sext. Beatrice is silent for long minutes, and then she cries for a single drawn-out minute, and then she is silent again. The candles on the chest burn lower. Aliénor changes them once. The room smells of sweat and of comfrey and of the iron smell of birth blood, which is unmistakable and is the same smell in a dyer's house and in a cardinal's house, and was the same in the year of Beatrice's grandmother. The head clears, the shoulders follow. The child comes. A boy, small as a rabbit. He does not breathe. You hold him in the linen. You rub his back. You put your mouth gently over his nose and mouth, and you breathe in twice. He does not breathe. You hold him a long second. You wash him with the warm water and the salt. You wrap him in the linen square that you boiled twice for the cord. You hand him to Beatrice. She takes him. She does not cry. She holds him against her chest, and she rocks, very slowly, as if he were sleeping. Aliénor begins, softly, to weep. You attend to the mother. The afterbirth comes. The bleeding eases. You are not going to lose her. She will live. You have done your work. You wash your hands at the basin. The water in the basin is dark. You sit down on the floor with your back against the wall on your right, the warm wall, the one between you and the chamber of the fires. You sit there for what you think is a minute, and what is in fact a quarter of an hour. Aliénor brings you a cup of wine. You drink the wine. You count, without meaning to, what is in your leather purse. 6 deniers from Mathilde's son this morning. The candles on Beatrice's chest have burned for the better part of the afternoon. 4 denier candles, 2 of them, perhaps a third. The whole of the linen square is going to be buried with the boy. You think, this work, in this room, with this girl, is going to cost the cardinal 60 deniers, 10 times what Mathilde's husband paid. You do not feel anger about this. You feel a precise, small accountancy in your head, as a midwife always does at the end. You write the number in your head. 6. 60. Same hands. The door opens. A man you have not seen before steps in. He is in dark blue wool, a heavy gold chain at his neck. He is perhaps 40. He looks at the girl and the small, wrapped child. He crosses himself. He says, in French, not Occitan, "My lady, I am sorry." He looks at you. He says, "Are you the midwife?" You say, "I am." He says, "I am the cardinal's steward. The body of the child will be taken from this room to the Cordeliers within the hour. He will be buried tonight in unconsecrated ground, outside the wall, because he has not been baptized and he has not breathed, and that is the law." He says it the way men with lawyers in the room say things, smoothly. Beatrice begins, very quietly, to say no. Not loud, a small sound, almost a sound a child makes. She holds the boy more tightly. Aliénor steps closer. You stand up. You say to the steward, "My lord, this woman will not part with him for unconsecrated ground." He says, "The law is clear." You say, "His Holiness, this June, has authorized the burial of plague dead in ground especially blessed outside the city for the purpose. It is in the bull he issued 10 days ago. The new ground is consecrated by his own hand. The child died in this room. The child can be buried in the new ground if His Holiness gives permission. The steward looks at you. He says, "The new ground is for plague dead. The child did not die of plague." You say, "The child died in a pope's house in the year the pope has opened the ground for the dead of his city." You say it before you can think whether it is right to say. The steward stops. He looks at you longer. He looks at Beatrice. He looks at the door. He says more quietly, "Who would ask?" You say, "I will ask." He laughs once, not unkindly. He says, "A midwife of the Dyer's quarter will not be admitted to the chamber of His Holiness, even on this day." Then the door behind him opens, and the secretary from the morning, the thin man with the ink on his thumb, the one who walked you up the stairs, steps in. He has heard the last sentence. He says, "A midwife will not be admitted to the chamber on her own, but she can stand in the doorway. The maitre permits a doorway. I will take her." The steward looks at the secretary. The secretary holds the door open. He looks at you. He says, "Now, madame, we have a quarter of an hour before the changing of the watch, and before the maitre reads the office of Vespers for the second time. We must go now." You look at Beatrice. She nods, holding the small, wrapped boy. You leave your linen bag by the basin. You take only the comfrey and the salt horn. You do not know why, perhaps because your hand is used to taking them. You step out behind the secretary into the corridor, where the wall on your right is warm. The wall now is in front of you, because you have turned. You walk 15 paces. The secretary stops. He raises a hand to a sentry. The sentry, who is a man-at-arms in dark wool with the keys on his shoulder, looks at you and then at the secretary. The secretary says nothing. The sentry steps aside. The secretary opens a small inner door. He says, "Stay in the doorway. Do not step in. Speak when His Holiness looks at you. Do not be afraid of the heat." You step up. You look in. The room is enormous. It is the great chamber that overlooks the orchard. 2 windows on the far wall are shuttered against the afternoon sun. The afternoon light is reduced to slits. The light in the room is the light of 2 great bonfires, each the size of a small cart, one on the left of the chamber and one on the right, set on broad iron platforms with sand beneath them. Pine logs, sprigs of rosemary thrown on top, that is the heavy smell. Between the 2 fires, on a low chair of dark wood, sits a man in 3 layers of white linen. He is sweating through the linen. His face is broad and red. He is 60 years old. His left hand rests on the arm of the chair. His right hand holds a small book, the leather worn smooth, open at a page. He is the Pope. At the wall on the right, behind a small writing table, sits another man, in a dark gown over a white undertunic. He is thin, dark-haired, perhaps 50. He is writing in a notebook. He does not look up. This is Maître Chauliac. The voice you heard through the wall was his. You stand in the doorway. You do not step in. The fire on your left is close enough to dry your face in 3 breaths. You can feel the heat under your eyelids. You wait. The Pope looks up. He sees you in the doorway. He does not start. He does not frown. He raises one finger to Maître Chauliac. Maître Chauliac looks up briefly, then back to his page. The Pope says, in French, "Who is the woman?" The secretary beside you says, "Holiness, she is the midwife who was brought into the household of Cardinal Aubert at the hour of prime. She has been with a young woman in childbirth. The child has been born dead. She has come to ask a thing of you. The Pope is silent for a moment. He says, "Come closer to the doorway. Do not cross it. There is a danger to you of the air in this chamber. The wall of the fires keeps it inside. Do not step over." You step half a foot closer, no more. You can feel the sweat now on your collarbone. You speak. You say in your best French, which is good French because you have heard French in this city all your life. "Holiness, the young woman will not part with the child to be buried in unconsecrated ground." The boy did not breathe. He was 2 months early. He died in the house of the Cardinal Aubert this afternoon. There is no priest. The Cardinal's chaplain has not yet returned. The mother is 19, and she has been holding the boy for 1 hour, and she will not let him go. I have come to ask whether the boy may be buried in the new ground beyond the wall that you have blessed for the dead of this city. The Pope looks at you for what is perhaps half a minute. You see his face very clearly in the firelight. He has dark circles under both eyes. He has not slept much. He is afraid. You understand in the doorway that the Pope of Rome is afraid and is not pretending not to be. He is 60 years old, and he is sitting between 2 great bonfires because his physician has told him that it may save him, and he has done what his physician has told him, and he is afraid. He says, "I would like to know your name, midwife." You say, "Adelaide." He says, "Adelaide, the boy you have brought from the Cardinal's house may be buried in the new ground. I will send word to the steward. The new ground is consecrated for any dead of this city this summer. He will be buried Christian. Will you go with the mother?" You say, "I will go with the mother as far as the gate, Holiness." He says, "Good." He looks down at his book. Then he looks up again and he says, "Adelaide, go home tonight by the road along the river. The plague is in the eastern streets today. The maître has told me. Do not pass through the Rue Saint-Étienne." You say, "Yes, Holiness." He says, "God keep your children." You say nothing. You step back. The secretary closes the door very quietly. You walk 15 paces along the corridor with the warm wall now on your left, where it should be, where it is supposed to be, walls in their proper places, hands in their proper places, work in its proper hours. You are walking. You do not feel your feet on the flagstones. The bell of Saint-Pierre is ringing for vespers. The afternoon is gone. You have spoken to the Pope. Beatrice is taken from her bed in a chair carried by 2 of the Cardinal's men. The small wrapped boy is in her lap. You walk beside the chair down the same stairs you climbed at Tours. The corridor is cooler than it was. The fires are still burning in the chamber on the right, but you are walking away from them now. You feel the heat slipping off your shoulders, layer by layer, as you go down. Aliénor walks behind you. She is carrying your linen bag. You did not ask her to. She has done it because someone had to. You go out by the same iron-banded oak door. The street is in the gold light of the last hour before sunset. The 2 men carrying the chair walk fast. The procession is small. The steward in dark blue at the front, the 2 chairmen, then Beatrice with the small boy, then Aliénor, then you, then a single chaplain who has come at last, in a black soutane, walking slightly to the side, reading psalms quietly. You walk down the Rue de la Calade and then turn at the corner onto the road that runs along the wall toward the Cordeliers Gate. From there, it is half a mile to the new ground. You do not stay for the burial. You promise the Pope You would go as far as the gate. At the Cordelier's gate, Beatrice looks at you. You go to her. You put your hand on her hair. You say, very quietly, the only thing you can say, which is, "He was Christian. He will be in blessed earth tonight." Beatrice nods once. She does not let go of the boy. The procession passes through the gate, and you stand and watch it go down the road in the gold light until you cannot tell which of the figures is Aliénor anymore. Then you turn, and you go back into the city. You go home by the river road, as the Pope said. The Rhône is very wide here, and slow at the end of June, the colour of milky tea. The barges are on the river. You see them as you come down to the embankment. There are 4 of them at the bend, low in the water, broad. They are piled with bodies. The bodies are wrapped, some in linen, some in old cloaks, some in sailcloth, and stones are tied to each bundle with rope at the chest and at the ankles. The boatmen are working in pairs, one at the pole and one in the boat, lifting the bundles to the rail. They lift them carefully, not roughly. They tip them over the side. Each bundle falls slowly, weighted, and goes under without splashing much. The barge is at the middle of the river, where the current is deepest. The bodies, the maitre has told the Pope, must go down deep enough that they will not be washed up downstream. The Pope has paid for this with his own treasury, the steward had said earlier, on the staircase. 1 denier per body. The boatmen will not row for less, because there is too much fear in the work. There is no more ground inside the walls. There is no more ground beyond the walls that has not already been opened twice. There is the river. The Pope has bought a stretch of riverbank and the river itself, in his own person, for the dead of his city. He has blessed the water. Tonight, the priest of the boat barge, attired Cordelier in black, you can see him at the prow, is reading the burial office over each bundle as it goes over. He looks very small at this distance. The bell of St. Pierre is ringing again. It rings now for Compline, but it also rings for the burials. You walk along the embankment. You do not stop. You do not count the barges. You go up the Rue d'Elys to your own door. The door opens before you knock. Marguerite is there. She has not gone to bed. Bertrand is asleep on the bench by the hearth. Marguerite says, "Maman." You step in. You set your linen bag on the table. You sit down on the bench beside Bertrand without taking off your shoes. Marguerite sits next to you. She is silent for a while. Then she says, and her voice is the voice of a child trying not to upset her mother, which is a voice you have heard from too many children of too many mothers. She says, "Maman, I tried this morning to remember Papa's face. I tried for a long time. I cannot remember it. I can see his hands and the back of his head when he was at the bench. I cannot see his face." You do not answer for a long moment. You sit with your hand on her shoulder and the other hand on Bertrand's small back where he is sleeping. You feel, in your chest, the way you felt this afternoon between the fires, except inside instead of outside, slow heat moving up through the breastbone. You say finally, "He had a small scar on the left cheek, here, from the time the awls slipped. He had a high forehead. He was not handsome, but his eyes set close and bright. He smiled crooked, the left side higher." Marguerite is silent. She says eventually, "I will try to see that." You say, "In a year you will not remember any of it. In 2 years you will only remember that you cannot remember. That is what happens. It is not a fault in you." You touch her hair. She does not cry. You do not cry. There is no crying left in this house, perhaps, for tonight. You stand up. You take off your shoes. You wash your hands at the basin for the 5th time today. You sit at the table. You open the small leather purse at your belt. You count out what is in it. 6 deniers copper from Mathilde's husband Hugues this morning. 60 deniers silver from the Cardinal Aubert's steward, who paid you at the foot of the stairs as you were leaving without your asking. You set the 6 and the 60 in 2 small piles on the wooden table. The same wood Jean made the table from. The same hands worked both this morning and this afternoon. 6. 60. A small accountancy that you do not feel anger about, because there is no anger left tonight either. You put the 6 in the clay jar where you keep the household coin. You put the 60 in the smaller clay jar on the high shelf where you keep Jean's wedding ring, which you took off his finger before they laid him on the board. You stand at the window. The bell of Saint-Pierre is ringing again. You do not know who it is ringing for. You did not know this morning either, and this morning you thought you understood the bell. Now you understand only that the boy is at the bell rope at Saint-Pierre, and that he is still pulling it, and that there are still bodies tonight, on the river and in the ground, and that you have come home and your children are still alive, and that this is the only true accountancy that you have at the end of this 28th of June. The name of my hero is composite across several real women of Avignon in 1348. The reconstruction of this day relies on the bull of Pope Clement VI, Quamvis Perfidium, issued in the autumn of that year, which condemned the burning of Jews in the cities of the Rhine as the cause of the plague, and on the consecration of new burial ground outside the wall earlier that summer. On the Chronicle of the Canon of Saint-Pierre, recently re-edited by the Carmelite Archive, on the De Chirurgia Magna of Maître Guy de Chauliac, completed in 1363, in which he writes, in his own first person, of the fires of the chamber and of his own illness in September, and on the burial registers of Avignon, kept by the Archdeacon and now held in the Vatican Apostolic Archive. Direct speech in this story is a reconstruction